And some of the most important feedback is the I don't care about that.
Oh my gosh, right?
Because anything that your target market is saying, I actually don't care about that, you need to cut it out of your product, and you definitely need to cut it out of your marketing, because you're just having a conversation that is not going to interest your first 10 customers or your next 100 customers or your next 1,000 customers. So get really, really lean in what it is that you're designing and what it is you're selling. And this is another reason to do this validation early, not after you've built what you believe to be the thing that you're going to launch. Do it early. Otherwise, you're just building a whole lot of stuff that you're not actually going to use.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Marketing Blender Show. I'm Dacia Coffey.
And I'm Daisy McCarty.
Now, today we are talking about when is it the right time to hire a fractional CMO for your startup SaaS company?
Yes. So SAAS Fractional CMO is our topic for today. And it's not surprising that this is an area where the fractional model is of interest, because SaaS startups need to be lean. They're accountable to their investors, whether that's themselves or their family and friends or external investors. Every dollar they spend is being scrutinized.
Yes.
And at the same time, they're facing some really complicated challenges in growth.
I agree. I mean, I think there's so much hype around, reoccurring revenue and the SaaS model and how valuable it is. And I think people get so caught up on what the company could be 10 years from now or 20 years from now, or when they get purchased or whatever, that there are some really predictable, extremely dangerous landmines. If you're lucky, they're only potholes that you can really come across. And so, I was laughing when I was reviewing the notes before this, because basically the short answer of when to hire a SaaS fractional CMO is right freaking now.
No, don't wait.
Doesn't matter if you are $0 in revenue, right now is the right time. So you do a lot of work around this initial startup. So talk to everybody about that product market fit and what's happening, like why $0 is the right time to be thinking about marketing.
Sure. So for a SaaS company, they're usually founded because they've identified some problem that they can solve.
We hope. Yes.
Oh, I wasn't going to stop there. They've identified a problem that they can solve. They've always identified a problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they've identified a worthy problem to solve.
Oh, or that people will pay for that problem to be solved. Great point.
Not
Great
necessarily
point.
a problem that people care about, or that the people with the money care about.
Yes.
So it's not unusual for me to meet a technologist or a technology team that's identified, for example, a workflow inside of a business where they could go in and make it work better. Mm-hmm. It's not always a workflow that the people with the authority to say yes to the solution care about fixing.
Yes.
So just because they're able to remove friction doesn't mean that they're solving a problem that has monetary value to an organization.
Exactly.
So figuring out, is this problem a problem that we can turn into a commercial solution, is really one of the first pitfalls. Because you can get a lot of people excited about the idea of making something easier, but when it comes to the nitty gritty of, and what else do we need to change within our technology stack to make that happen? What kind of training do our people need in order to use this solution? What's the budget point? How easy is it to get set up? There's always the pain of change that you have to face. And there's also just the fact that if people can get something for free, are they going to spend money for it? So sometimes SaaS companies will find a problem to solve that some other company is going to solve for free as part of a larger solution.
Absolutely. Change management is so hard. Individual behavior, changing individual behavior and deciding I'm going to learn this new thing, no matter how easy our founders think it is to learn, man, that mental block that somebody may or may not have around, is that problem worthy, not just from a money standpoint, but from a time and attention standpoint, a loyalty, because recurring revenue doesn't matter if you can't get them past the free demo, or if you can't get them past that first upgrade. It's all for nothing, and you're just churning and losing opportunity and increasing, that cost of customer retention or attraction that you've got. So, where do you go as a CMO to help with this? Because there's no crystal ball. So how does the fractional CMO really help with validating product market fit and identifying, oh, we know how to trigger this problem and make it marketable?
Sure. So there are a number of different tools and approaches that you can use, but use the term validation, which is exactly what we're looking to find.
Yeah.
So validation does not mean, hey, I made this thing while I was working at my last company and all my coworkers liked it and my boss liked it. So now I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to turn it into a SaaS platform.
Yep.
And I'm going to sell it because that is one person who liked it, who already likes and trusts you.
Exactly.
That's like the easiest sell in the world. So you can't assume just because you created something that solves a problem in one organization, that's a problem that's extant across many organizations.
Yep.
So the number one thing to do is always have as many conversations as possible. If I'm talking to a startup and they haven't had 100 conversations with their target market yet, I have a question about whether or not they've identified the right kind of problem to solve.
Agreed.
Now, that's not easy to have 100 conversations, which is why you need marketing early so you can have access to those conversations. That's the first thing that you use marketing for, is how do I attract and engage my prospective target market, not just my prospective customers, but like, how do I even have enough conversations to validate that this is an idea that's worth pursuing? Obviously, you need to look at the competitive landscape. So how else is this problem being solved?
Yeah.
Now, if there are people who are trying to solve it, but they're doing it poorly, and they're still making some money with it, that's a really good sign, because it means that the pain is high enough that people are willing to accept a not so great solution just to try to address it.
Exactly. It's interesting, like something that comes up for me when I think about the 100 conversations is twofold. Number one, those conversations aren't necessarily sales conversations. Now, if they are, fantastic. However, you have to be able to have a way to listen to what's happening in those conversations and use that to iterate and provide feedback. That is a very, very different set of ears, marketing ears, in order to pull innovation and continue to evolve your company and your offering versus I'm listening for objections. I'm listening for ways to communicate the value that we bring. And so I think that's another thing, is making sure that someone is holding that space for the fact that you are early in market feedback. Even lack of interest is incredibly valuable, and that there are insights to be harvested there versus, oh, it just got rejected, they didn't get it. And so even those 100 conversations are so important around, well, how are we harvesting every outcome, even if it wasn't the one that you wanted?
Yes. And some of the most important feedback is the I don't care about that.
Oh my gosh, right?
Because anything that your target market is saying, I actually don't care about that, you need to cut it out of your product, and you definitely need to cut it out of your marketing, because you're just having a conversation that is not going to interest your first 10 customers or your next 100 customers or your next 1,000 customers. So get really, really lean in what it is that you're designing and what it is you're selling. And this is another reason to do this validation early, not after you've built what you believe to be the thing that you're going to launch. Do it early. Otherwise, you're just building a whole lot of stuff that you're not actually going to use.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I feel like SaaS companies are the ones at the greatest risk of that. Narcissus, I can never say his name, but that Greek mythology where, the young man was beautiful and he gazed into the river and he sees his own reflection. He falls in love with himself and he won't leave. He just keeps staring at it and loving at it, that he eventually wastes away and dies in obsession with his own creation himself. And I feel like SaaS founders have a tendency, or the risk, not the tendency, but the risk of looking in the mirror and being like, oh, I love what I've built. I love our team. I love this idea so much, that they get the blinders to the fact that the real world is saying or not saying very constructive, healthy things that you need to listen to so that you can thrive and prosper, versus just trying to defend and love on your own thing. So,
and of course, the third place to look is SEO research. What do people think they're trying to solve?
Yes.
Because this is one of the top challenges that I see with SaaS companies. They believe that they're going to go directly into lead gen, and they end up being stuck for years in demand gen because they didn't realize that their target market does not understand that there's a problem. What if you're a small business, a startup, or even a nonprofit? We serve you with the same strategies, processes, and frameworks that help you grow no matter your business size or your business stage. In fact, the smaller your business and the smaller your budget, the more important it is to get real advice from a chief marketing officer so you can stop wasting money, start getting more of your ideal customers, and keep more of the customers that you have. If you want to learn more about how to do that affordably, talk with me about our Marketing Blender Lab program.
I think there's a lot of sexiness around the idea of being a disruptor. But here's the problem with disruption. No one knows what you do. No one knows to search for your totally brand new way of doing things. And so, to your point, understanding that competitive landscape, like you mentioned earlier, understanding what people are searching for, because that's what you're going to be compared to. It doesn't really matter if you are way, way better. You actually have to navigate the issues, the perspective, the current paradigm. You've really got to dive into that, take it very, very seriously, and navigate the positioning that will eventually unlock your potential and your success. But that does not happen with like a little magic wand and a guess. Not ever.
I have a great example from a client that I've been working with for a number of years now. And we talk a lot about understanding your digital competition.
Yeah.
And so I was having a conversation with the CEO around the keywords that we needed to be found for. And the CEO's response was, but that's not like exactly the thing that we do. Can't we target this keyword and that keyword? And I was like, there's zero volume around it. So
right.
No, we can't.
Yep.
And the reason we need to target these broader keywords is because that's what your target customers are searching for. And you have a digital competitor who does not do what you do, but who is sitting on all of those keywords at the number one position and has been for the last 18 months. And you better hurry and catch up with them, because it doesn't matter if they're not doing exactly the same thing as you are. If they own that space in your mind of your ideal customer, that's what matters. And it also doesn't matter that you might attract some people who are looking for what your competitor does and not what you do,
Yes.
or looking for something a little different than what you offer. So what? They can go find someplace else. It's not going to wear out their little finger clicking to find a different one than you. Don't say, well, we can't target that keyword because not everybody looking for it is looking for what we do. If the people that are looking for what you do are searching using that keyword, grab it.
Yes. Exactly. I was doing keyword research for a prospective client the other day. And of course, what happened exactly like what you're describing is the phrases that are coming up, and they were in ed tech or educational technology, selling to school districts. The phrases that came up, the client is saying, well, that's not exactly accurate. Does not matter. Does not matter. That is what school administrators are typing in to solve their problem. That is what teachers are researching to solve. And it was so fun and interesting because when we started tracking some of those keywords, it brought up really great conversations around where is the money going to come from? And just through a smart series of questions and a little bit of research, so this is just super preliminary, we realized there's a whole buyer persona in that PTA community and in the advocate community that can actually generate revenue for this company. And there's a whole part of the market that is going to be faster to revenue and more likely to lean into that and way more creative and get that groundswell going, even as they tackle some of the more challenging targets. And so fun. But you're right. Like looking at the market can open up so many marketing opportunities, but also the right conversations about where are real opportunities. Now, this thought brings me to something you said earlier. You use the phrase, okay, the first 10 customers, versus, like later on, your 1,000th customer. There's a big difference between those, though, isn't there? So let's talk about those first 10 customers. Why are they different? Why does it matter? And when you're thinking about early adopters, I guess is what we're talking about, talk about that in regards to SaaS companies.
This is an incredibly important distinction for SaaS companies to make in terms of understanding what are the characteristics of an early adopter.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's going to say yes. Not everyone's going to say yes right now. Not everyone wants to be first.
Nope. That's right.
There is a very specific subset that is your early adopter. And those are the people that have a high risk tolerance. Now, remember, you're a SaaS company in their mind, you could be gone in 12 months.
Yeah.
And then there's no support because you know what? SaaS companies, they fail all the time.
I know.
Tech companies, they might be here. You might embed them in your tech stack and then, all of a sudden they're gone. And
That's
what are you
right.
left with? So they have to have a high risk tolerance. You need to respect that they are willing to take a risk on you. And they need to have a high enough pain that it's worth changing.
That one. Huge.
So, yeah, there can be people who are excited just about trying new things all the time. But if it's in a B2B space, they also have to have a reason to change. They're not just going to do it because, ooh, shiny new object came along. There has to be a big enough and a bad enough pain for them to make that change. So those are the two key characteristics of your early adopters. And this is where you want to test whether or not anyone will say yes to it. Because if you can't get people who have an extremely high pain and a low risk and high risk tolerance to say yes, then you're not going to get anybody else to.
Yeah.
So don't just keep thinking, if I talk to enough people or I get this in front of enough people, then somebody will eventually say yes. Not if you haven't identified who are the people most likely to see yes, and who are they going to be people that will turn on that champion persona for you and the person who's going to go out and help you actually get your next customer and your next customer and next customer. Because those are your early case studies. Those are your early testimonials. Those are the ones who are willing to work through some of the bugs that are, but are in your platform.
They are.
They just always are.
So it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're the ones that are actually helping you develop what is the next step. And that next iteration of your platform is the one that goes wide.
Yes.
And that goes to the next group of people who are like, okay, their pain is high enough that they have to change, but they are okay with being, okay, we're going to wait until a few other people try it first, and then we're going to get in there and we're going to give it a go.
Absolutely. You know, these are situations where if you have the ability to record those sales conversations or just those interview conversations with early adopters, their exact words are so important. Not how you translate them, not how you understand them, but their exact words. And there's a big difference around iterating and paying attention to those early adopters and their feedback versus, oh, I had one conversation and they wanted a specific feature, so we immediately went and built it. Or we had another conversation and they said, well, what if, or do you do this? And just because they asked that question, oh, we're going to go ahead and build that. And again, it gets back into that love of building versus love of serving your market. And at the end of the day, that's all you're doing. It doesn't matter what your team is capable of building. It only matters how well you're serving the market and transforming their ability to do their work, achieve their goals, solve their problems. And so I always get so nervous around the abandonment of an MVP and where they just start making it robust so early. And none of this validation is really driving those development costs.
Right. And it should be customer-driven development, but not one customer.
Yeah.
Because that's not scalable. That flies in the face of SaaS. So if you're building a SaaS product, it has to be something that every time you add a new feature, it's useful to a broad cross-section of your customer base. Otherwise, you're just a custom software company that's dressed up as SaaS. So make sure when you're talking about customer-driven development, that is more than one customer asking for something for you to build, because you have to be able to commercialize it. You have to be able to sell it at scale across your platform. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to drive your revenue goals and your recurring revenue.
Absolutely. Be careful about your burn rate. We want you to be profitable as early as possible. And we want you to have a healthy runway, towards your future, not developing so much that you're burning through that cash flow and you're not sure where your next dollar or your next customer, your next investor comes from. So, all right, let's talk about investors, because this is a different persona. We've spent a lot of time on why marketing should come in early on the customer side, but actually marketing and finding a SaaS fractional CMO can help drive investor dollars as well, because there's a product investor fit there too. I'm going to steal that a little bit, and just make it our own for today. But that's totally, completely different messaging. So we've done some work around investor attraction, investor pitches. Where do they start, and how does the CMO help?
One of the most common misconceptions about investors is that they all care about the same thing.
Oh, right. Yeah, like they're the same
This
ilk,
is the
or
money
the same
pool
type.
right?
Oh,
This is the
such a
money
good point.
people, and they all care about the same thing. No, they do not. When you're building a pitch deck, you need to understand that not all investors care about the same things. So you need to identify what is your ideal investor persona, not just do they have money and they're willing to give it to me, which are great things, but also what is it that they care about? How do they define success for themselves, for their portfolio, for the companies that they're investing in, for any other stakeholders that they're accountable to? You have to make sure that what you're pitching to them is not just, this is my business plan, these are my projections or wishes in many cases, but what's the story? There has to be an emotional connection with what your investors care about. Now, ideally, investors would care about the success of your organization and your team. A lot of times investors care about the success of their portfolio, and that's okay too, but you can't just talk money when it comes to that. You need to be talking about what's happening for them emotionally when their portfolio is successful. That's the story you're telling to them, not just this is what your bottom line is going to look like if you invest in this organization, but what is that going to help them achieve? What is it that they're looking for when it comes to the health of their portfolio? Are they someone who's going to invest long-term? They want to help grow the company because that's what makes them feel like they have an impact? Or is it one that wants to make sure that they're balancing risk across their portfolio? Or are they looking for something that they can resell as fast as possible? And there needs to be alignment there between obviously what you want to accomplish with your organization, what they want to accomplish, but also alignment between your message around what you're offering them and what they really care about.
Yeah, and at the risk of stating things that our audience knows, I mean, even the types of investors are so different in thinking about who are you going after. A venture capitalist is different or sometimes different than an angel investor. There are individuals that have high net worth that are interested in alternative investment strategies and are open to this privately, right? I mean, there are local groups. Private equity typically buys validated, tested components. So that they're typically not early stage investors. I mean, it's friends and family. Why? But knowing that and exactly breaking down what is their agenda, what is their worldview, what are they trying to be a part of? Because it's very easy to say, oh, every investor is about the dollars. Well, sure, but to what level? Because a VC maybe has a 1 out of 10 success rate, and they're okay with that because they're looking for the unicorn. An angel investor might be looking for something very different. Definitely a family friend or individual is looking for a higher likelihood of return for a lower, or they're looking for that bigger equity stake once you go new rounds and new series. So just always thinking about who are the human beings that will be the right engine to your success, because you have to give up a lot for, their stake and their money, because it comes along with control. They want input and they want to control a portion of how you're going to drive your business. And so there really does need to be some really healthy thoughtfulness, hopefully with a professional, around how do you navigate that investor landscape.
The other good thing about having a fractional chief marketing officer as part of that conversation is that we're pretty good at understanding if a business model is actually viable or not.
Yeah.
So we're going to be asking the hard questions and putting our clients on the spot before they even get near an investor.
Yeah.
And saying, if I'm looking at this, my questions are, how are you actually going to acquire customers? How are you going to keep them? What price point do you have to have in order to have profitability? What's your break-even point? There are a lot of questions that we're going to have around this, and the answers are not going to be sufficient if they're just, we think this. Okay, what's the data?
That's right. Exactly. And I'll add that the philosophies and strategies on customer marketing, they apply to the humans on the investor side too. So a couple months ago, I had the opportunity to help rewrite the stage pitch for a woman founder who was doing one of those Shark Tank type of local presentations. And it was so fun. She only had 3 minutes and we rewrote her pitch and she won $20,000. It was so exciting. But those kind of principles really, really matter in regards to understanding how does the brain think? How do you get buy-in? how do you deliver your message? And so it goes from strategic all the way down to tactical, where what are you saying when you are right in front of them? There is a right or a wrong way to do that. So we see a lot of horrible pitch decks. Yeah, exactly. And I know founders are busy, so I know they don't have time for this. That's the other thing too. No, exactly. So I want to come full circle and go, okay, so we've talked a lot about why they should why SaaS companies should focus on marketing early and why to work with fractional CMO. But what is a fractional CMO as it relates to a tech company, especially SaaS? So what does that look like?
So I don't believe that SaaS is 100% different than any of the other B2B companies that we work with, because it's still...
Everybody likes to say that, but...
Right. It's a business model, but humans are humans, and that's who you're selling to.
Exactly.
So the same principles that we use in terms of start with knowing your personas, building your messaging, understanding your competitive landscape, all the strategy is first. And that's the primary value that a CMO brings to the table at the beginning is you have to have a strategy.
Yes.
You cannot afford to just say, well, we've got our MVP and we're going to go out there, we're going to try some tactics and see what works. You have to begin with strategy. So starting with strategy, understanding what success looks like. So a chief marketing officer really, especially in a SaaS startup, is going to be often in a chief revenue officer role shared with other executives.
Yep.
So there's not one person that's responsible for that, but a CMO is definitely going to be having a lot of voice in the revenue conversation.
Yes.
So building revenue strategy for a SaaS company is one area where a CMO can really offer a lot of early guidance. So you're not faced with that down the road, oh, I didn't think about this, and now I can't make up for it in volume and just keep selling more because I'm never going to be profitable.
Agreed. One of our other CMOs on our team recently was working with a SaaS company, and there was a side door to revenue. So they had a very long sales cycle. A huge portion of their speed to revenue was around enterprise companies. They don't make decisions on a dime because of how large the scale of their organizations are. But he was able to identify can you break this part off, scale it down, get a side door into the mid-market and enterprise market so that you can accelerate that speed to revenue. And it was just such a cool innovation. And even though it wasn't what some people think of traditional marketing, that is marketing. That is marketing strategy. It is thinking revenue strategy, exactly like you said. So super, super important. And I think the other thing is that full-time salary versus fractional salary. So, a fractional is on a retainer. That means if it doesn't work, you get fired. You get fired really quickly. So you've got somebody who is adamantly advocating for driving revenue and speed to profit as well, because you have to. Like, that is literally your role, is to cut out all fluff and to cut out all agendas and help people see very clearly what that road and that path to revenue is.
It is. And speaking of what you spend full-time versus an outsourced CMO, we're not even talking about the cost of a full-time CMO, just the cost of a mid-level marketer.
Yes.
You can get a fractional chief marketing officer, a fractional creative director, a fractional digital marketer, a fractional social media specialist, and more for the cost of one mid-level marketing hire.
Yeah.
This is a budget no-brainer.
Yes.
So I often see that the first hire a SaaS company will make is actually that mid-level marketer who is a tactician, not able to build strategy.
Yeah, agreed.
And not from their fault.
They're a doer.
That's what the SaaS company says. We can afford this level of skill, so that's what they hire for, when they should really be spreading that budget across experts at all of the different things that they need to have done.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, all right, any final thoughts on SaaS companies marketing early and how to predict and plan for their success?
Yeah, so one thing that I would say specifically about B2B SaaS, because most of the companies that I work with in SaaS are B2B companies, is that in the perfect world of SaaS, you have people who are going all the way from not aware of your brand or your solution to being on your website, to signing up for a demo, to a free trial, to a paid subscription without talking to a human being ever.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the most scalable, most profitable model for SaaS. So hallelujah. That's the dream.
Of course.
In B2B SaaS, there's usually a consultative selling process at some point.
Well said. That's right.
So the goal is to take that consultative sales process and make it very last mile. So we all know B2B buyers want to be most of the way through the sales process anyway, but by the time they talk to a human being.
Yep.
So you want to be looking at your marketing strategy and tactics and the brand experience and user experience that you're developing as part of that to maximize the amount of self-service that happens in the sales journey.
Yeah.
So that your sales team don't just keep hiring more salespeople
No.
to solve this problem.
No.
Solve it by using marketing to bring people to that last mile.
Agreed. And, we spent a lot of time. I'm so glad you're saying this because we did spend a lot of time on the very beginning stages because it's so dangerous. However, that's a really great point. There is a lot of strategic decisions, even around those levels. So, for instance, understanding that buyer's journey in B2B, I mean, you might have somebody that comes in and they hire or they pay for a single seat or one single license, and that's appropriate. But their journey actually ends up being like, wow, there's so much value if they've been nurtured correctly, or if your product is really a fit for them, or now they're adding team members and they're growing and they're moving to those upper levels. That alone requires its own strategy, its own customer strategy, its own marketing plan where you can predictably identify, oh, this person might be coming in a small or medium size package, the one where they just went ahead and bought it without talking to someone, but we actually know they are likely, because of their industry size, problem solution fit, to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade. And that's really what they should be gunning for, is not just that quick fix, click a button and make a purchase that you set and forget, but getting as much squeeze out of the lemon of every single customer, and then evolving that business model and that marketing strategy as your customer base changes and evolves to be really, really intentional and proactive.
And this is one of the other benefits of having a fractional chief marketing officer, not just to build strategy, but to oversee the execution of it. Because with this SaaS company, your profit margin is directly related to how effectively you're marketing and selling to your customer base. So you'll want to make sure that you have each of those tactics appropriately identified and appropriately executed. And it's your CMO's job to make sure that there is continuous improvement built into the marketing system, just as your development team is building in continuous improvement into the product.
I love it. Well, you guys, we hope you got a lot out of this episode. And one of the things I hope that you really heard is that client attraction and customer and revenue strategy should go from stressful to exciting for you by working with a professional. So we would love to hear any of your individual questions. Post them in the comments or DM either one of us, or check us out on themarketingblender.com. And if you liked what you heard, give us that thumbs up and that subscribe. We will see you next week. Onward and upward.